shut up, Africa, say it louder. Say shut up. Salam alaikum, 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 salam alaikum.
United we stand, divided we fall. All we need is freedom. All we need is love. Free Africans free.
Be free from slavery. Free, be free from slavery. Free yourself from mental slavery. Free yourself from mental slavery. Free yourself from mental slavery. Free from slavery. Be free from slavery. Yeah.
We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war. We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war. We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war.
Salam alaikum, assalamu alaikum, salam alaikum, assalamu alaikum, salam alaikum, assalamu alaikum, salam alaikum, assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, African one. If you wanna be free, the most simplest one in the world. Get yourself developed with the reggae music coming straight to you from the one of the most peaceful men. So many lie down on the streets, whatever them with their guns in the hands. Get yourself the most free time. I preach about freedom. Preach about freedom.
We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war. We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war. We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war.
Better look on the street as a lesson, youth. Stop violence as a lesson. You have to listen and be a man. The music we are doing is not a music for fun. We are preaching, hear it loud and clear. Ain't night and day, no slipping it out. Better preach, let the people hear. Better preach, let the blind feel. The sound of freedom and love. The sound of freedom and love. The sound of freedom and love. The sound African one love. Ethiopia. Salam alaikum. Morocco. Salam alaikum. Libya. Salam alaikum. Niger. Salam alaikum. Nigeria. Salam alaikum. Niger. Salam alaikum. South Sudan. Salam alaikum. Sudan. Salam alaikum. South Africa. Salam alaikum. African one. Salam alaikum. African one. Salam alaikum. Let's unite and be free. Salam alaikum. United we stand. Salam alaikum. Before. Salam alaikum. Salam alaikum.
Good evening from the west coast of the United States, and good morning back home, and welcome to Concerned Citizen of South Sudan, my dear viewers of the Concerned Citizen of South Sudan. Today we have this very special episode of Concerned Citizen of South Sudan, and you can see below the screen here our topic of today. President Salva Kiir is currently in New York to attending UN General Assembly. Will he be asked to? Will he answer the question of human rights violation abuses since 2011. That is our topic today. I understand as we conduct this very important topic today, President Salva Kiir is resting in his hotel at Manhattan, New York, one of the most luxury hotel in the world. And we intended to conduct this very important episode tonight, not only for President Salva Kiir Mayadi to watch this episode, but also for the world leaders who are gathered for this annual General Assembly of the United Nations session of 78, and to revisit and let them know the suffering that people of South Sudan have been going through since we become an independent nation and before we become an independent nation as region of Southern Sudan and the Republic of South Sudan. Today, I'll be talking to you as a leader, as a friend of South Sudan. Today, I will be speaking to you as a concerned citizen of South Sudan. The concerned citizen of South Sudan out there. This message is for you as well. As I said, President Kiir, it has been nearly 10 years for not attending the UN General Assembly that's supposed to be taking place, which is taking place every year in New York. He has been living in isolation, but all of a sudden, he decided to come to New York to attend the General Assembly, hoping that he'll be able to sell his political deception that have been using on people of South Sudan. President Salva Kiir Mayar, this is the man that fought for 38 years for justice, liberty, and prosperity. But unfortunately, he has not kept his promises. President Salva Kiir Mayar is the man that actually picked up the constitution document, the Declaration of Independence of South Sudan, and make a clear statement that most of the leaders of the world will remember until up to date, saying that our people will not experience war anymore. Our experience will not run and cross the border for seeking the refuge. Our people will not suffer from hunger. And he made it clear that if you are a corrupt leader, if you are a corrupt person, you have no space in his government whatsoever. But unfortunately, all at all was a lie. People of South Sudan have suffered through the war that he have created. People of South Sudan have suffered through the corruption that he introduced to the country. People of South Sudan have no services. People of South Sudan have suffered from most basic necessity of human being. Yet, President Kiir introduced autocracy in South Sudan. It became authoritarian dictatorship and introduced autocracy that benefit the few that are in the Republic of South Sudan. So I'm speaking to you today as President Kiir, as I said, is resting in his hotel in New York, in a free world capital, in the land of brave and the home of brave and land of free. I'm speaking to you, the friend of South Sudan, the people that supported people of South Sudan for 22 years struggle. That will you hold President Salva Kiir accountable? Will you ask President Kiir when he had that meeting, maybe 2 days, 3 days from now, with the former U.S. ambassador to South Sudan, the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Mali P. I know he's not going to meet the high level official in the United States government because of his own policy, because he wouldn't live to the standard that actually has promised since he became a leader of South Sudan. People of South Sudan together, they fought for justice, liberty, and prosperity. And don't take me wrong, we always sing that. The three key words, justice, liberty, and prosperity. For justice, liberty, and prosperity. We always sing the three key words on our national anthem. I want you as a leader, as you are coming to New York, and talk about the important issues, to remind President Salva Kiir that what you have been fighting for 38 years, to reminding him that your people have been suffering for a very long time. To hold him accountable to the promises that he has made as the leader of that country. I know the speech that he's going to give on 20 and 21st of this month is going to be all full of lies. It's going to be a lie, totally lie. But as you promise that support to the people of South Sudan is unwavering. President Kiir has created war. President Kiir has committed human rights abuses. Now, today in the Republic of South Sudan, you cannot assemble. You cannot speak up. You cannot gather. You can not write an article. You cannot criticize the regime. Then you'll be thrown in jail or you'll be killed. That is not the republic that we have been fighting for. That is not the South Sudan we have been fighting for. We've been fighting because we were marginalized. We've been fighting because we were third-class citizens. We've been fighting because we need services to be delivered. We've been fighting because we want to be free. Today, people of South Sudan are not free. People of South Sudan are still suffering. And they continue to suffer under the Kiir autocracy regime. So, my dear brothers, I wanted to remind you, and I want you to speak up. And we all want to hold Kiir accountable, Kiir regime accountable for atrocity, for the corruption, for injustice. This is the man that created war in 2013 and signed a peace agreement and later become more reluctant about implementing that peace agreement. Not only that, he abolished that peace agreement and created another war in 2016. And then again, introduced another extension by signing another peace agreement on 2018. The peace deal that's supposed to be end with an election. But unfortunately, President Kiir, he wanted to remain in power until he died. And he refused the fairness. And he refused to implement peace agreement that he has signed, that he has promised, that would be better than the deal that he had signed in 2015 in Addis Ababa. Not only that, this is the man that introduced the national dialogue and made it clear in 2016, December 14, 2016, that actually the national dialogue is going to be the solution for the problem of South Sudan. But in fact, it was a political tactic just to avoid implementing the peace agreement. Because when the result came out of national dialogue, President Kiir refused. When people of South Sudan from 79 counties have spoken and said, the problem of South Sudan is President Salva Kiir and his deputy, Dr. Riek Machar. And it was very clear that actually if President Kiir and Dr. Riek Machar have to exit political life, then South Sudan has an opportunity to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But unfortunately, President Kiir refused and took the document and put it in the drawer because it has addressed the chair that is sitting on. This is the president that promises that at the end of interim period of that agreement, the election will be conducted. But unfortunately refuses implementation of that peace agreement, no security arrangement, no writing permanent constitution, no census in the country, no geographical constituencies in the country. This is President Salva Kiir. And now he's here in New York to sell the ideas of fake election that actually even his own political parties members, he banned them from declaring their own candidacy for presidency or gubernatorial or to be a commissioner or a member of National Legislative Assembly. Simply, he sees himself is the only man, and South Sudan is a one-man show. This is Salva Kiir Mayar. Salva Kiir Mayar that actually has allowed the national security to kill the activists, to kill the political writers in South Sudan. It started with Adaya Abraham, who is the member of the SPLA party, to Agri Jaden, to Dong Samuel, to Boldeng and Walagok, Georgia Thor, and many, many, many more South Sudanese who disagree with his policies, who does not want to see people of South Sudan to suffer anymore. And until up to date, we still have political prisoners in South Sudan. And that's why I reminded you, this is not the South Sudan that we have been fighting for. We fought for just South Sudan that's going to be just. South Sudan that is going to be fair and transparent. South Sudan that we are going to live in peace and harmony. But with President Kiir, what we can see is a killing, is a devastation, is a corruption, is a lack of services delivery. You cannot speak up. So, President Kiir banning the member of the SPLM party not to declare their candidacy, that tells you something. If you are not aware of what has been happening in the country, I'm here telling you. Not only that, the scenario of 2013 is repeating itself again. By refusing fairness within the SPLM party in 2013, and now refusing implementing the peace agreement, and refusing the fairness within his own political party. Not only that, he went further and banning them. And now, the peace partners that have signed peace agreement with them are not allowed to speak up, are not allowed to campaign, are not allowed to gather. Not only that, the leader of the peace partner, his deputy, Dr. Riek Machar, is not allowed to travel even within the country. He cannot go to Wau, he cannot go to Malakal, he cannot even go for a vacation, he cannot even attend the most important meeting that, even though he has been invited. So I wanted to remind you again of what Salva Kiir has been doing. So with that, I want to play a clip of actually the SPLM-IO deputy is speaking up from this point that actually our leader has been under arrest since he landed in Juba. And here in the social media, we have been talking about this for quite some time. We have been saying that Dr. Yang Mashar from confinement in Pretoria in South Africa to confinement in South Sudan. We have said this for a very long time. And today, after years and years, the SPLM-IO are speaking. It's good though the SPLM-IO finally, they are awakening and they start talking about these very important issues. Because when people keep quiet, that gives Salva Kiir a morale to do whatever he has been doing. It gave him an opportunity to suppress and oppress people of South Sudan more. It gave him an opportunity to loot and take the country where we don't want our country to be. Not only that, today, Salva Kiir is repeating the same thing, what had happened in 2011, when he imposed the constitution that will give all the right to him. Again, now he's proposing, not only proposing, they passed the bill, a law that will guarantee him to appoint 5% of the member of National Legislative Assembly. Is that the democracy? Is that the democracy that President Kiir is talking about? Is that the fair election that he's talking about? You be the judge. We have been saying that President Kiir had been using political deception for a very long time. And he continued to do so. So here we are again. 2013 is repeating itself, and he's continued to go further, banning his own member of political parties not to run, banning his own partner in peace agreement not to campaign, including those of SAWA who are partnered in current government. Not too long ago, Lamakol Ajawin decided to go home, and he was received with happiness. Not only that, member of J1, they were there to receive him. And now the member of SAWA are trying to make a reception for their own member of coalition, but yet President Kiir is instructing his national security not to allow any meeting to take place. It's go back to what I have said to you, that actually President Kiir, South Sudan is the only one-man show to him. You cannot conduct any political rally. You cannot conduct any political meeting. You cannot campaign in the state. You cannot do anything. And you cannot speak up, and you cannot write, and you cannot assemble. And yet, he's saying that we are for democracy, we are for election. A week and a half ago, he made a very controversial statement by saying that actually we are continuing with an election. And if the result of the election, if you have been defeated and you wanted to rebel, and then this time no one is going to rebel with you, sending an indication to his political rival, Dr. Yang Mashar. That's exactly what had happened in 2013. Singing the song of war over and over again. People of South Sudan are tired of this, and we should not tolerate this. And that's why I'm asking you, as concerned citizen of South Sudan, as someone who cares about this country, enough is enough. And that's why we are asking the friend of South Sudan to confront this tyranny. Since he is here in New York to sell his own fake ideas about election and to make lies again here in front of you, you already have enough report from the UNAMIS in South Sudan. You don't need to be fooled. This is the time that President Kiir needs to be confronted. He needs to be held accountable for what he has been done for all these years. So with that, let me go ahead and play a very important clips from the SPLM-IO deputy on how Riek Machar actually has been detained in Juba and he cannot move anywhere. Just watch.
He is not free to move. He has never left Juba. Our chairman is not free to move. He has never left Juba since he came in 2020. He has never left Juba. He has not visited any state. He has not even gone for treatment outside. It's not because we have not been asking for it. We have been asking for it. Only that we don't talk about it in the media. But I think today is the time to talk about it. That he is not free. He is sick in Juba. And he treats himself here inside Juba. There is no fairness. He wanted to go to WOW for a conference organized by the state. He was denied to go and participate in WOW. He wanted to go to West Africa on an invitation of one of the governments. He was denied. He was also invited to the current UN General Assembly. He was also denied. He was denied. He could not go. So this is the circumstance under which we operate. We don't talk sometimes about it, but today we are telling you that under this circumstance, and now they have even added insult to injury by saying let the president appoint 5% of the members of parliament. That means South Sudan is still a long way to see democracy. To see democracy in this country is still a long way, unless we implement the peace agreement in letter and spirit.
All right, here you have it, my dear brothers and sisters. That is the SPLM-IO, the peace partner. Okay, is speaking up. And we have said this many times, that actually Dr. Riek Machar is not free to move anywhere in the country. Dr. Riek Machar cannot even travel to Bor, cannot travel anywhere in the country. So from confinement from Pretoria in South Africa to confinement in Juba. That was the plan. When we spoke in 2018, that actually, and we made it clear, that that agreement of September 12, 2018, it was not actually a peace agreement. It was a political tactic because the regime of Salva Kiir was squeezed internationally. There was arm embargo, more sanction on the officials, and even the oil was not flowing because they had issues with Khartoum. So he brought Riek Machar from Pretoria, South Africa, to show to the world that actually we wanted to make people in a peace agreement. To deceive people of South Sudan, actually, I wanted to bring peace agreement. But what that was actually political tactic. And that's why there was no implementation whatsoever. And President Kiir spoke and lied to the people of South Sudan that actually the deal that they have signed in Khartoum is the deal that he wanted. And it's a deal that he's comfortable with. Okay? But later, he started making excuses, saying that this peace agreement actually was designed not to be implemented. But it's the same person that actually was speaking about it, saying that this is the deal that we need, because the one that in Addis Ababa we were forced to sign. But here you are, no implementation, no security arrangement, no formal constitution, thing that I mentioned in the beginning of this program. And we made a complaint, actually, Dr. Riek Machar, not to go to Juba before any security arrangement. But actually, in good faith, Dr. Riek Machar traveled to Juba, and he said to expedite the process and to avoid what had happened in 2015 peace deal, the Tabanic plan that Kiir actually introduced by changing the advanced team of Riek Machar and appointing Taban Dengai as the deputy, and kick Riek Machar out of the country to Congo, and we start in square one again. So that's the deal. Now, we have been speaking for all these years that actually there was no political will from this government, from Salva Kiir Mayar, because he wanted to die in the chair. any implementation of the peace agreement, that means at the end there will be election, there will be fairness, and people of South Sudan will choose their own leader that they want them to lead them. But that's far away from his dictionary. He does not want that. He wanted to continue. He wanted to continue until he died. That's why he doesn't want fairness. Because if there is a fairness, Kiir will not be elected. If there is a real election, if there is a real democracy, Kiir will not be elected. Because Kiir represents hate, represent division, represent corruption, represent death. This is what he represents in the country. And we spoke about this for a very long time. And we continue to speak about this. And that's what it is exactly. We have to name things on the way they are. This is Salva Kiir Mayar. Now, we were talking to Riek Machar. Why are you not speaking? If you are confined, if you cannot move, what kind of protocol is that? You are a peace partner, and if you have been prevented not to travel within the country, and then there is a need for you to speak up. And then there is a need to do a press conference, okay? But Riek Machar has not done so. For all these years, been quiet. It has been quiet. But you know what? It's not too late. Now his deputy is speaking, but we don't want your deputy to be speaking. We want you to be speaking about what you have been facing. Anyhow, the whole entire world now have heard what your own political movement, political party has been going through. Okay? We have reminded people, we have talked about this, and here the IO are speaking that actually their own leader, SPLM IO, their own leader cannot travel. Their own leader is sick but cannot go outside for medical treatment. While President Kiir is sick, he can go to South Africa, he can go anywhere he wanted to go. And the other member of the government, they can go wherever they wanted to go. But the peace partner, Riek Machar, who Kiir feel he's a threat to his own seat, the real rival, he has prevented him from campaigning. Then the question that we are asking, what kind of election is that going to take place? The election that you are not allowing your opponent to campaign, the election that you are not allowing your opponent to move, your opponent to speak up, your opponent to have a meeting. What kind of election that what Salva Kiir wanted to do? This is a question that we are asking you, and you should be asking Salva Kiir, and even the member of the SPLM party. They are facing the same problem. The member of his own political party, they are facing the same problem because he banned them. He banned them from declaring their own candidacy. He banning them from dreaming to become a president, from dreaming to become a governor, from dreaming to become a member of National Legislative Assembly. So, know it. This is Salva Kiir that we have been talking to you about, that actually has no intention of letting this country to move forward, of letting this country to be free, of letting people of South Sudan to be in charge of their own political affairs until he died. Not only that, President Kiir, because he knows if there is a really fairness in the country, and if elections have to take place in conducive environment, and then those courts, those who are supporting him, those autocrats around him will never come back. Will never come back to National Legislative Assembly. That's why President Kiir has rushed, like what he did in 2011, and now to introduce that after an election, President can have a right to choose 5% of member of National Legislative Assembly. This is so laughable. What kind of democracy is that? And what kind of election is that? After you conduct an election in the country, and then President has a right to appoint 5%. This is an insult to democracy all over the world. This is an insult to the people of South Sudan. This is an insult to SPLM party, the real good SPLM party who have been fighting for 22 years for justice, liberty, and prosperity. It is a real insult. But President Kiir, because he has been deceiving people of South Sudan, and nothing has happened, and continue to do so, because this is the way he operates. This is the president that actually, when issues of Jongore Canal came up, and the public rose up and said, no, we don't want this to happen, he said, okay, put it to the rest, and let's do a thrill study, and then after that, we can do it. But actually, unfortunately, he was signing a secret deal with Egyptian to continue the dredging. And now they are dredging our rivers, which will impact our environment, will impact the population of 5 million because they depend on the fishery in this region. This is Salva Kiir. Tonight, he's resting in his hotel in Manhattan, New York, and he will lie on 21st of this month, September, by giving that lies, speech in New York. So I want you to take to account, we had enough, and enough is enough. So let's go ahead and play the chaotic situation that actually the National Legislative Assembly has been through this week, because they are people of integrity. They are good South Sudanese who care about this country, who don't want this Kiritarian regime to continue with this shameful, with this autocracy, with this corruption and mismanagement, okay, and authoritarian, and who don't want suffering of people of South Sudan to continue. When the Honorable Speaker of the House, Jema Nunu Okumba, of course, she's one of the Kiir, friends who Kiir trusted. But if she has to go back now to her own constituency, she will never return back to Juba as a member of National Legislative Assembly. And you know what? Interestingly, people actually who introduced that bill, most of them are from Western Barghazal and Western Equatoria and Central Equatoria. So shameful, so shameful, so shameful. So let me go ahead and play that clip, and you will see the people of integrity will walk out of that chamber, because this is so shame. It is so shame for president to ask to appoint 5% of member of National Legislative Assembly. Watch this, my dear brothers and sisters.
So that we reach to consensus. I think we should give a chance for some few hands so that we reach to consensus. So I'm asking that if you can give us chance so that we can say some few things on this issue, and then later on we can go for voting if people are going for voting.
And let people vote. Line by line, starting from here. You will pass the mic. Start from in front here. What is happening? Bring the mic. It went. Okay, we start 1, 2. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. 7, 8. 9.
Interesting. Have you seen what happened? I can replay it over and over again. Have you seen what happened? So actually, it was a totally distraction. Actually, it didn't pass, but they try to make it pass. These are the information that actually we are getting. And Jema Nunu Kumba, those are the one that leading. They are the one that introducing that 5%. So after election, President Kiir has a right to appoint 5%. Just ask yourself, Is that not an insult to democracy, really? Where is in the world that election will be conducted and the member of parliament are elected and then the president will appoint 5%? Where? Even 1%, even 0.1%. Where would that happen? Where would that happen? That tell you who is Salva Kiir. That tell you what he wanted to do. Those people who are saying that, okay, we are going for election. Look what your leader is doing. Look what Salva Kiir is doing. Corruption in his nature. Look what he's doing now. Because he knows these people who are passing his budget, these people who are engaging in corruption with him, they will not come back. If they're real democracy, if they're real transparency, if people of South Sudan are allowed to debate freely and fairly, then they will not come back. Because what they have introduced for the last 18 years is corruption, killing, creating community violence, dividing people of South Sudan along ethnic, dividing along regional, along clans, whatsoever. So it's a shame, and it is insult to democracy. And South Sudan has been fighting for democracy. They've been fighting for justice. They've been fighting for liberty. And Salva Kiir is introducing injustice and dictatorial. We have suffered and we have suffered and we continue to suffer. Human rights abuses. So just tell me, what kind of democracy is that President Kiir is asking? What kind of democracy is that he will not allow his opponent to campaign? Just tell me. Just tell me. I know if you have a mental conviction as a citizen, as a good Samaritan, as someone who cares about human dignity, you will reject that and you will say no. And that's why there are some members of the National Legislative Assembly. Within the SPLM, they refuse that so-called 5% that president will appoint. And I know there are good members there. I know those of Atem Garang, they walk out. I know Nyal Deng, they walk out. I know a lot of them, they've walked out. They have walked out from that chamber because this is shameful. It is so shameful. Shameful. Because Kiir wanted to do what he wanted to do to remain in power on the expenses of people of South Sudan. It doesn't matter. They are dying from hunger. They are dying from diseases. They are dying from the war. They are dying from the corruption that he has created. It doesn't matter to him because he has made it clear in 2017 when he was asked, your people are dying. They continue to die. Why don't you give the power to younger generation to move this country to the next level? And he said, what is my incentive? What is my incentive? So President Kiir needs incentive. He cannot give up the power. He wanted to reward himself. So the years that he spent in Bush, 17 years in Anyanya 1 and 21 years in liberation struggle, he wanted to reward himself. He wanted to remain in power until he died. He doesn't care about the justice that he had been fighting for the people of South Sudan. It doesn't care about taking down to the people. It doesn't care about the services. It doesn't care about transformation of military power to economic power to empower the people of South Sudan so they can live with decency. It doesn't care. So, as leaders of the world are gathered in New York, I want you to ask that question. Ask that question. Why are you doing this to your own people? The people that you have been fighting for 38 years. The people that have contributed their chickens, their cows, okay, their beans, their sons. Why are you doing that to them? Why? Don't you have a feeling? Don't you have that feeling? To let go so people can thrive, so people can grow, so South Sudanese with developmental ideas can move this country to the next level, so at least we can live with decency. people of goodwill will ask that question. They will ask that question. And the former ambassador will ask that question as well. I know many leaders, they will say, okay, South Sudan is a sovereign nation, but you can still say that, Mr. President, you said you are going to implement peace agreement. And you said that the peace agreement that you care of. Why are you not implementing it? Mr. President, why there is no security arrangement? Mr. President, why are you allowing the process of writing the Constitution? Mr. President, why are you allowing, the census in the country, the political constituencies in the country, the political party consultation? Why are these all allowed? These are principles of democracy. If you really believe in democracy, if you fought for democracy, and if you want to be just to your own people, why are you not allowing this to happen? Just ask that simple question. I know he come to New York to lie, that actually we are conducting election and we are implementing people, but we have some obstacles. There is no obstacles. You, the president, you can do it. I know, but he did not want to do it. I am convinced, I have a mental conviction, no matter what we do, if we give Salva Kiir another 20 years, another 50 years, it is not going to work. And he will do nothing different in what he has done for the last 18 years. It will continue with chaos, with death everywhere, with hunger everywhere, with human rights abuses everywhere, with corruption everywhere. That's what we'll continue to see, because that's what he can represent. I want you to ask him that question. You agreed that actually you want to conduct election. Why are you not allowing your opponent to campaign? Why are you not allowing your own member of your political party to declare their candidacy for presidency? Because it's all about competition. If you say that we want to run for election and fair election, why are you not allowing them? Why are you not allowing people to dream what they want it to be? Why and why and why? For how long are you going to do this to your own people? Can you have mercy? God have mercy on you. Can you have mercy on your people? Can you have mercy on people of South Sudan? Can you, your children have a lot of companies, You have your own company. You have ARC. You have companies. The oil money come directly to you. The oil money doesn't even go to the Central Bank of South Sudan. As Honorable Nial Deng Nial have said it, that money need to go to the bank. And the former finance minister said that we need money to go to the bank of Central Bank of the country. That's why there is no salaries. For how long people are going to suffer? For how long even SSDF, South Sudan Defense Forces, are going to suffer not to receive their own salary? Civil servant, for how long? For how long this inflation will continue because of you? Because there is no clear plan for the country. There is no developmental project in the country. Because you chose to suppress them, to oppress them. So people always worried about their well-being, their own security, their meal of the day. Because your philosophy, if people are giving opportunity, if there is more freedom, they will ask about justice. They will ask about equal opportunity and education. They will ask about this. And that's why you are pressing them. So someone can worry about their own security, about the just only meal of the day. But for how long? And you, my brothers and sisters who have been oppressed, for how long are you going to be oppressed? You are dying slowly. Your children. But Salva Kiir and it, into circle, they have their families, they have their children, get quality education outside. They are using the money of the nation. The money that actually supposed to be building schools, infrastructure, road, and build good hospitals. and deliver services to you and to your children and the children of martyrs, but they are using this, and you continue to suffer because they have to create the class. So they will be up here and you are zero down here. For how long are you going to be living that life? You deserve to be living with dignity. You do. So people of goodwill, I hope they will ask those questions to President Salva Kiir, because this is not going to change. As long we are keeping quiet, as long we are thinking that it is okay, it will be a disease, it will be a cancer in our society. So with that, I want to open floors to my brothers and sisters who are in Clubhouse. And if you want to come here through Facebook, I can give you an opportunity. We have a lot of turnout today on the Facebook. But if you don't have that ability to come through Facebook, I want you to weigh in through Clubhouse. And I will be weighing in more and more because I don't want to take this just for myself only. Okay. With that, I want to give that opportunity. Ustaz Dengi Ayok, I do see you there. And if there is any more people that wanted to weigh in, we can give them an opportunity. Ustaz Dengi, if you hear me, I want to give you a chance to add your perspective as well. There is many things that we need to talk about. And I know Salva Kiir is watching tonight. He's resting in his hotel in Manhattan, New York. Okay, with huge delegation that came from Juba on the expenses of people of South Sudan. Dengi, please.
Thank you, Jonkor. I hope my voice is clear.
You are very clear.
Fellow citizens, we are all aware that the President of the Republic, General Salva Kiir Mayardit, is already in New York City to take part in the 78th sessions of the United Nations General Assembly. It was September last year, and it is September again this year. And the world leaders are converging today, Tuesday, September 19, 2023, in New York City for their typical annual sessions with the agenda of rebuilding trust and reigniting global solidarity, accelerating actions on the 2030 agenda and its sustainable development goals toward peace, prosperity, progress, and human solidarity for all. In addition to other issues such as climate change and its consequences on the planet Earth. This official visit to New York City comes after a long time, since the president last traveled to the USA in 2014 to attend the US-Africa Summit 9 years ago during President Obama's administration, as it was stated earlier by our brother Jonko. So these official trips come to the UN General Headquarters comes at a time in which the diplomatic ties between the Republic of South Sudan and the US had witnessed deterioration in the last 12 years, particularly over the last 9 years. According to his briefing to journalists at Juba International Airport on Sunday, September 17, 2023, shortly before the president and his delegation traveled to the UN headquarters in New York, the Minister of Presidential Affairs stated that the president shall deliver a keynote address to the UN General Assembly on Thursday, September the 21st, 2023. And so the president is expected to highlight in his keynote address the status of the implementations of the September 12, 2018 revitalized peace agreement for the resolutions of the conflict in the country. He would certainly try his best to tell the world leaders that his government is serious on the implementations of the revitalized 2018 peace deal. However, as we all know, the status of the implementations of the peace deal is slow. Indeed, is slow but not sure, due to political intransigence and lack of political will to execute what was agreed on in 2018 by none other than President Salva Kiir himself. As we all follow, there are a lot of outstanding issues in the area of security arrangements, graduations of the unified forces, reconstitutions of national commissions, national reconciliations and healing, economic and financial issues, including hybrid and transitional justice, etc. Moreover, countries like Troika, which have a strong presence in South Sudan and in the UN General Assembly, the IGAD and the UN General Assembly as a world forum, are already aware of the status of the peace pact implementation through their representatives in Juba. On top of that, the current unfolding political events back home after President Kiir's trip to the UN headquarters in New York City would certainly represent a great political embarrassment to the president, who would be paradoxically standing in front of the UN General Assembly to tell the community of nations that his government is keen on the implementations of peace deal because the reconstituted Transitional National Legislative Assembly sat on Monday, September 18, 2023, to deliberate and pass the 2012 electoral bill, which is being amended in the year 2023. Nonetheless, the Speaker of the House did not give the honorable members of the House a chance to express their views first on the powers given to the President in the bill to appoint 5% of MPs into the House after the election, as you have seen it in the video. So the Speaker deliberately did not give a chance to the MPs to express their views on the electoral bill. She instead asked the House to vote in favor of the bill, and then the House was divided over the matter, and half of the MPs walked out in protest against the wrong procedures followed by the Speaker of the House. And so we would like to inform the entire civilized world that democracy was confiscated by SPLM through the Speaker of the Parliament. The electoral bill, which is going to govern the electoral procedures next year, as we speak, is already passed in the Parliament without deliberations and views of the MPs. And when the President returned to the country from New York next week, he would sign it into law. And it will become one of the laws that would be used to govern the electoral process next year. Now, the SPLM-IO has already issued a press release on this matter yesterday, which was Monday, September 18, 2023. Hence, the keynote address by the President to the UN General Assembly on Thursday, September 21st, 2023, shall not look sincere, honest, and realistic to the world leaders at the UN General Assembly. President Salva Kiir shall not reflect the image of a true leader in front of the UN General Assembly. The minister in the office of the President also stated that the President in his speech to the UN General Assembly would touch on the upcoming general elections. Nevertheless, the world leaders have already seen the future results of the upcoming general elections in the latest statements, which were uttered last week by first Vice President and the President of the Republic himself. Therefore, talking about the upcoming general elections in front of the General Assembly of the United Nations would not also look like something that is sincere and realistic. So the keynote address by the president would also highlight the ongoing conflict in Sudan between Sudan Armed Forces and Rapid Support Forces and the way forward, according to the Minister of Presidential Affairs. While the same situation of Sudan is already in the making in South Sudan, with President Salva Kiir being the chief architect, as evident by his last statements at the SPLM house in Juba before he traveled to New York. There is no clear timetable for any sideline meetings that would bring the president and top US officials and other world leaders together to discuss issues of mutual interest. The only agenda of the president, which is very clear, is delivering his speech to the UN General Assembly. And this is an indication that the diplomatic ties between South Sudan and other countries, especially the US, are very weak. In a related statement to the briefing by the Minister of Presidential Affairs at Juba International Airport, prior to taking off of the president and his accompanying delegation, the press secretary in the office of the president stated after the arrival of the president in New York that the president was going to meet the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonius Guterres. We haven't yet seen this in the news up to now. However, we are mindful that the UN Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, is aware of the situation in the country through the UN mission in Juba, and he is therefore not going to take whatever President Salva Kiir would tell him seriously, whether in his safe meeting with him or in his keynote address to the UN General Assembly or in any marginal meetings, if there are any. The UN Secretary General Guterres is the same man who said that he has never seen leaders who do not care about the well-being of their people like the leaders of South Sudan in 2018 in Addis Ababa during the negotiations. President Kiir is also expected to present a plea to the UN General Assembly and the UN Security Council to lift sanctions imposed on his government, such as arms embargo. But the UN General Assembly and the Security Council would not accept his plea because they have never seen a responsible government in South Sudan under the leadership of President Salva Kiir since the civil war erupted in the country in December 2013. In a summary, there is not much to be expected from the current trip of President Salva Kiir to New York in terms of political support and diplomatic gains and issues of mutual interest for South Sudan and other countries, because it comes at a time in which Salva Kiir's government remains in political and diplomatic isolation. And so the coming few days shall prove us right as we follow the deliberations at the UN General Headquarters in New York. We hereby ask the world leaders at the UN General Headquarters to consider President Salva Kiir not as a peacemaker but a warmonger and a human rights violator and a perpetrator of war crimes against the people of South Sudan. We hereby urge the world at the UN General Headquarters to consider President Salva Kiir as a man who has confiscated all the fundamental freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of political and civil activism, and freedom of traveling and coming back home. As we speak, the SOA members on Saturday, September 16, 2023, who are part and parcels and indeed a signatory to the revitalized agreement, were denied the right of organizing a reception ceremony for their Secretary General by the security apparatus. And so we hereby ask the world leaders at the UN General Headquarters to consider President Salva Kiir as a man who is inept and corrupt and cannot lead South Sudanese to the promised land of justice, liberty, and prosperity. We hereby ask the world leaders at the UN General Headquarters to consider President Salva Kiir as a man who has shut up the political and democratic space in the face of political forces in the country. And as we speak, no political forces in the country are campaigning and thereby denying them the right to exercise their political and democratic rights in South Sudan. We hereby urge the world leaders at the UN General Headquarters to consider President Salva Kiir as a man who is not going to conduct democratic elections in South Sudan in 2024, but bloody elections that would end up in blood, birth, and doom. We hereby urge the UN, the world leaders at the UN General Headquarters, as concerned citizens of this country, to look at President Salva Kiir as a prophet of doom in our civilized and progressive world. We hereby urge the world leaders at the UN General Headquarters to consider President Salva Kiir as a man who is against humanity in South Sudan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ustaz Dengida York, for your perspective and elaborating. And again, we are here today in this very special episode, airing our views and reminding people of South Sudan and reminding the world leaders what South Sudanese have been going through since signing the CPA, a CPA that actually is supposed to transform the life of people of South Sudan, CPA that's supposed to bring stability, CPA that's supposed to bring justice and liberty and prosperity, CPA that people of South Sudan are supposed to be living in peace and harmony. But unfortunately, because of leadership of Salva Kiir, the dictator Salva Kiir, the authoritarian, the autocratic regime that Salva Kiir that have introduced corruption and human rights abuses and being monopoly, this is we all reject, and we continue to remind you, this is not South Sudan that you have been fighting for. This is not South Sudan that your uncle has been fighting for. This is South Sudan that we have not been dreaming of. We have been dreaming of South Sudan that can be just to all of us. But because of Salva Kiir, South Sudan cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel, because they have been using political deception for a very long time. It has been. It created war in 2013, as I spoke about it. It went ahead and said, oh, let's do Arusha reunification. But unfortunately, it was all lies. Arusha unification did not go anywhere. It was meant just to bring anyone in and then all of a sudden cancel everything. This is the man that created peace, war and signed a peace deal and refused to implement peace deal. And this is the man that had been ruling the country with political extension term and act after extension, because it does not believe in rules of law, does not believe in fairness, does not believe in democracy. And that's why we are appealing to you, so he can answer the question. Salva Kiir is coming to the United States, and he's saying that actually we wanted to go for election that actually does not meet any minimum standard. Minimum standard, you know what it is. That's we can have a permanent constitution in the country, and we can have census in the country, and we can have political party consultation in the country, the laws of the land. These are minimum requirements. These are minimum standard requirement for an election. How are you going to conduct an election and you are not even allowing political space in the country? Your opponent cannot move from point A to point B. Okay, your own political party, you are banning them from declaring their own, candidacy to run for a public office. What kind of election is that? What kind of democracy is that? As I said from the beginning, this is an insult actually to democracy. It is an insult to the people of South Sudan who tirelessly have been patient, who tirelessly have been fighting for fairness in their own country so they can live with decency, so the world can see. The world can see Salva Kiir Mayardis does not represent any fairness. It represents hate. It represents now people of South Sudan are more pragmatic, are more polarized along ethnic, are more polarized along regional. People are more divided along ethnic. He created community and violence everywhere. Now we have war going on in Pachala. This is the making of Salva Kiir Mayardit. He signed deals without implementing them. He did. He signed deals without implementing them. So where we go from here? Where we go from here, we have to reject all these things. You have been patient enough. People of South Sudan, you have been patient enough. And I am so grateful that actually some leaders from the SPLM party, they walked out of that chamber of parliament, which is Jema Nunu Kumbar, introduced ridiculous, an insult of democracy by saying that actually this bill will allow President Kiir to appoint 5% of member of National Legislative Assembly. I wonder, where is that? What is that? So you, the people of South Sudan, it is your time, it is your moment to speak up. And it requires for you to go to the street for Biha. We can go to the street because this is this president or this person has actually robbed your future. This is the president actually has been selling the oil that's supposed to be used to diversify the economy in the country so we can farm and then we can produce our food locally so people of South Sudan cannot suffer. But in the state, it relies on foreign aid. The citizens are fed by World Food Program, while South Sudan is very fertile land that actually, if money of the oil is used to diversify this economy and have a farm in the country, we can produce food locally, and that actually will help our currency. Our pounds can go up, and we can resolve the economic issues. But because he is not interested in prosperity of people of South Sudan, is not interested in the stability of South Sudan, that's why South Sudan has to remain the way it is, and people of South Sudan have suffered, and then he has to allow his own friends, Museveni, and others, to bring their own good, so they are the one that beneficial. So the beneficiaries of this republic, of this country that we have been fighting for 22 years, are the political elites in Juba and the foreigners, even in the foreigners that are working with the NGOs. The money that going to NGOs are just for salaries. People of South Sudan are the one that paying the price. So you and me, my brother and sister, what are you waiting for? You have been dying. You have been suffering. This is the time that we have to reject. And I am glad the members of SPLM party are not even happy with what Salva Kiir is doing, banning them, not allowing them, to dream, okay, along with other South Sudanese, whether from IO or from SAWA or from other political parties or any other opposition. This is your time. This is the moment that we need to go to the street and say, enough is enough. Enough is enough. I know culturally you care more. You care more than elders, and you give more than opportunity for elders. An elder is supposed to be a person of wisdom. That's what we know in our own culture. But an elder that is corrupt, an elder that actually don't want to see, the young grow and become a future for this country, that is not an elder. That is not an elder. That's corrupt, and it must be put to the dustbin because we had enough of Salva Kiir and his COVID. So with that, let me go ahead and bring the other South Sudanese from a clubhouse so they can have their own perspective here. I do see that Ustaz Mayan Dengit, and I can give you that opportunity and to weigh in. So the election that President Kiir actually is talking about, at the same time, Oh, I don't know where Mayan go because I see that he requested it, but unfortunately, okay, it's right there.
I'm here, Joko. You don't see me, I'm
Oh,
here.
okay. I do see that. So again, Riek Machar, Djibouti now is coming out, and we have spoke about this, that there is no political space, there is no conducive atmosphere in the country. You are not allowed to speak. Opponents are not speaking. There is no. You cannot conduct a meeting. Okay, in the country, you'll be arrested. Even Lama Col just came to the country. It's not even a month came to the country, and now his own, not only his own political party, but the coalition of Sawa wanted to make a reception for him, and so they can talk about the issues pertaining the country. What can we do from here? But they've been prevented by Salva Kiir. What the country that we have, and yet they are saying that everyone is free. You hear from Michael McQuilwet, the information minister and the spokesperson of the government. What did he say last time when he was asked that Dr. Yang Machar actually is under detention because he's confined within Juba and he cannot travel anywhere? What did he say? He said no. He said Riek actually is free. You know, when he was asked by IGA, Riek is free to go anywhere. Is Dr. Yang Machar is free now? You see how they've been lying? You see how they've been lying? They've been fooling people of South Sudan for a long time because people of South Sudan are good people. People are patient, you know. But you know what? You can fool some people sometimes, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. And that's what we want to know. And that's why we need to get up for our right and to stand up for our right. Ustaz Mayen, I want to give you that opportunity to weigh in, and we move on from here. And please, if you wanted to come in through Messenger, through StreamYard, on the Facebook, I am willing to bring all of you. The discussion is yours. As President Kiir is resting in Manhattan Hotel in New York, we want to send this clear message that actually he should be ashamed and he should leave now. Mr. Man, go ahead.
Greetings to you, Comrade Jonkor, Comrade Dengdi Dayok. Also, I saw him earlier. I don't see him on the podium right now. And to your esteemed viewers here on Clubhouse and on Facebook. Jonkor, it is good that the president finally decided to act as the chief diplomat of the country, of South Sudan, because he's the commander-in-chief, but he is also the chief diplomat. And the only time that this opportunity comes once in a year. Most presidents attend personally unless they have serious health issues or serious issues back home, then they will send their vice presidents. But mostly, we have seen that our president has not taken over his role as chief diplomat to the satisfaction of not only South Sudanese, but to the satisfaction of his job description, because the presidency is a job. Now that he has decided to come to New York, that is a plus. This is a good thing. I want to talk about three things. First, the importance of the meetings in the margins of the General Assembly. In fact, the keynote address is important, but those meetings in the margins of the General Assembly are more important than the keynote address. I personally attended the General Assembly in 2015 with the Vice President, General Dr. Waniga. And I saw that our side line meetings, or the meetings that we held in the margins of the General Assembly, were more important in the sense that they were one-on-one meetings with mostly heads of state from different parts of the world, and especially those who have interest in South Sudan and who want to invest in South Sudan. The talking with the president, with Salva Kiir himself, those presidents, they normally don't get the chance to speak with the head of state. They normally get briefings from their ambassadors, from their envoys. But this time they're going to sit down with the head of state of South Sudan, the chief executive, the man who distributes responsibilities, the man whose political vision, whose political objectives are to run South Sudan, and they were supposed to be the ones that are to be implemented by all the other people who used to come to the General Assembly. So this is a chance for these presidents to speak with our president directly face to face. Talking to the envoys back home is different completely from talking to presidents like him. One, you will have to give a personal impression on them, on those presidents who are interested in what is happening in South Sudan. This personal impression will go a long way for them to decide, because they are also chief executives in their countries. They are the final. They have the final say in their own countries. When you give them a good impression, they will immediately ask their foreign minister to note down something. There and then, in the margins, in that meeting, they will ask someone to note down, the press secretary, but normally he asks the most senior person who is close to him to take note, and we are going to see how we are going to invest in this sector and that sector. Because it is the president who is talking to another president. This personal impression, before that, they might test your knowledge about history in general. Because as the head of state, you need to know general information about history, not even the history of South Sudan alone. They might go about the history of Africa. They might go about how did the Arabs come to Sudan? How did they come to dominate you Africans? And they want to size you up. And the president we know, our president that we know, I doubt that he will give a good impression on the heads of state that he's going to meet. Not because he personally did not contribute to the liberation struggle. He personally does not have a glamorous history, a glorious history in the fight in South Sudan. That one, nobody can take it away from him. But now we are talking about development. We are talking about all other things related to the chief executive, the head of state. That impression as a head of state, without that, he is going to give them. What is his vision? They will ask him about, you've been in power for this much. What is your vision? What is the way forward? And which I will come to just when we are talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. They will ask him about his vision. And they will also they will tell him about their vision, how they brought their country from where the country was and where the country is. I'm sure a president like Paul Kagame, if he's there, I'm sure 100% he will ask for a meeting with President Salva Kiir. All the presidents of East Africa, because they come from the same region, they will ask for a meeting with President Kiir one-on-one. So sideline meetings or meetings in the margins make you very busy. The whole day, 2-3 days of 4 or 5 meetings a day, apart from the meeting with Antonio Guterres. The Americans might not want to meet with him because of political reasons. Last time when we went to New York, the vice president was asked to come to Washington, D.C. We want to go to Washington, D.C. And to meet with Dr. Riek Machar. And they were asked by, I thought it was Biden, yes, Biden and John Kerry to bring them together. President Kiir called Vice President James Wani is public knowledge. It's not something that we are talking about something related to job or something. Then he called him and asked him not to be to join that meeting, to be brought with Dr. Riek as like school kids.
Wow.
You know, but good enough. Dr. Wani refused. He told him yes, but we later on went to Washington D.C. and he went and met, because that was the only chance to give an impression to the Americans, to speak with them one-on-one. If we missed that, this is in our small meeting, we told him, if you missed that, I personally told VP Waniga, and he can attest to that. If you miss this chance, it might not come again. You see, you need, Riek Machar accepted to go. We had a meeting with him in New York, then he accepted to go to Washington. But the president didn't want Waniga to go to Washington, even though this is the only chance where diplomacy one-on-one is exercised, is practiced. So they will ask him about the vision, his vision to South Sudan, for South Sudan. History, general knowledge, all these questions will be asked. The third question that I'm sure he will be asked in the margins is that we hear that your country is the third largest oil exporter in Africa. And that question holds in it so many explanations. They will ask him about the international best practices that you are running your oil sector with. As we just heard a few days ago, our able colleagues, those of Warile and Dominic Akwe, gave us a good overview. I'm sure it's the best overview about how the oil sector is running. Those who did not watch that should go back and watch it. The oil sector, international best practices to run our oil sector is zero. It's not practice at all. There is no best practice in South Sudan in terms of the how to use the profit oil. They'll ask him about the impact of the war in Sudan on your oil sector. You see? Now, this one relates also to the theme. The theme of Sustainable Development Goals. I remember SDG was also the name because SDGs were passed in 2015 when we went with Vice President. As his press secretary, I was also the speech writer. You know, we concentrated his speech on the SDGs. Now, the president, his speech writers, I hope they're listening to this. You don't need to start talking about Riek Machar, names, I don't know, Madam who, Madam that, and the abandoned guy who was here, and you go back and explain the war. You know, they came to J1, and one came with an ambulance, and this one shot. And now if you come to Juba, there are bullets all over. And nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants completely to hear about what happened. Even though this is the only thing they know, all of them, most of them. Riek Machar came, now he's going to fight again. He's not a good person. He's going to... Nobody is interested. Now we are talking about SDGs. What are you doing, you yourself as the chief executive of the country, in regard to the Sustainable Development Goals?
Yeah, you know, Ustad Mayan.
Yes.
And this is one of the reasons that we said President Salva Kiir has ruled this country for 18 years. If really President Kiir was looking for, you know, transforming the country, diversify the economy in the country, you know, to make it stable, South Sudan would have been food efficient by now because we have money and cash. We have oil money. And this money actually, it would have been used, okay, to diversify the economy from being oil just dependency to agriculture. So we cannot bring matoke or sukuma wiki or zifted them in from Kenya or from Uganda. We would have produced our own food because anything that coming under the earth under the soil, we cannot bring it from outside. But the man has no plan, as you know. The man has no plan. And that's why always he's talking out the point. If you ask him a question, I'm doubt is going to accept even to have a meeting with this. And there is a reason now you see that the U.S. administration, sending, a very low, level delegation. And those of Ruto are coming to White House. Those of Kagame are coming to White House. But now President Kiir is going to meet with former ambassador to South Sudan, Mali Fee. This is the person that he's going to meet. He's not even going to meet with U.S. officials because of the way that he has been running the country and his policy toward, the U.S. So I don't expect anything good. And that's why I'm saying, the leaders of the world, people who have heart for the people of South Sudan, who contributed nearly $12 billion, from 90s all upward and helped with the referendum that was so credibly. Without support internationally, we wouldn't even achieve the goal of referendum and becoming an independent nation. And these are the people actually we should put our hope on them, to put more pressure, because Kiir, nothing worked with him. The only thing that worked with him is the pressure. That's the only thing worked with him. And instead of, of sanctioning, people who have no impact, Kiir himself need to be sanctioned. His family need to be sanctioned. The Nile Pad need to be sanctioned, because the oil money, that are used, they are the one that are running this government. They are the one that is bribing people. They are the one that become more bad governing in the country. That's what we need to have. That's what we need to see actually from the UN, from these countries, if they have really a concern for the region, because any stability in South Sudan, that means stability in the region. But actually, Kiir has found his own way by bribing these leaders in the region. And this is what I have been doing. So I don't expect actually anything good coming out of this. And that's why we are here appealing to the people of South Sudan to know that their suffering has reached that high, has reached way higher. And people who have goodwill, good Samaritan, who still have heart for the people of South Sudan, to support, but putting more pressure. Because President Kiir does not believe in transparency or, let's say, in a peaceful way of doing things. He has met with Pope. He has met with Pope, the highest, authority religions on earth. He has met with Pope, and Pope appealed to him, your people are dying. But he hasn't done anything. No mercy whatsoever. He has met with religious men. He met with Pope. He met with that Nigerian Joshua thing. He has met with so many, but his heart is not changing. So I don't expect anything will be changed from him. Unless people of South Sudan have to go to the street, unless this oil need to be sanctioned, because this is where the money comes from, 98% of the economy. And if that oil sanctioned, they will be thinking, will changing, for a better. So, man, I'm sorry cutting you off, but continue, please, and then we can give other people a chance.
No, this is a great intervention. Now they will ask him about that. Your country is the third largest oil producer or exporter in sub-Saharan Africa, about 200,000 barrels per day, every single day. So we are getting millions every single day. What is your administration doing in regards to the Sustainable Development Goals? The first SDG, let us remind ourselves, the 17 SDGs, let me go through just a few of them that are relevant. The first SDG is ending poverty. What did you do with the oil money to end poverty in South Sudan? And what is the rate of poverty in South Sudan? I bet.
Does he know?
If there is no statistics, let them call Juba immediately and get that statistic, because this is an SDG number 1. And this is a question that will be asked in every single meeting in the margins of the General Assembly. Zero hunger. This is a goal. Might not be achieved immediately, but what are you doing to reach zero hunger in 2030? 2030 is just 7 years from now, or 35 or whatever. What have you done so far with the oil money to end poverty? What have you done with goal number 3, good health and well-being of your people? How many hospitals have you built, and where are these hospitals? Quality education. How many schools have you built? Because these are sustainable development goals that every member of the United Nations must work on achieving. That is how development will reach everybody. You use your resources first in your country, then you reach for people outside. Clean water and sanitation. What have you done with clean water and sanitation? Juba itself, your capital city, after 18 years of taking over governance in your region, what have you done with clean water and sanitation? Is it true that tankers take water to houses in your capital city, Mr. President? If there is a bold president who wants to embarrass him, might ask him that. Affordable and clean energy. What have you done with clean energy? Did you? We heard that the Africa Development Bank gave you 400, almost $500 million. They will pretend not to know what the money was, how the money was injected back, because that money was to achieve Sustainable Development number 6, which is affordable and clean energy. Is the energy is the generator of Diumatok? Is it clean? Obviously not clean. People who have asthma in the city where this generator is will not have quality life because it is not clean energy generation. Is it affordable? No, because those generators use diesel.
Yes.
And that diesel, the money will be passed to the consumer. This is what investors do. So the energy that we have is neither affordable nor clean energy. So you have failed, Mr. President. They will not tell him, but they have their diplomatic ways of telling them that you have failed to achieve Sustainable Development number 6. Even though when the Africa Development Bank gave you that money, the SDGs were already out there. Of course, some of us will let us hope that you will not pass the blame on Diomatok, that the minister didn't know what was happening and all that. We hope that is not going to be the case. Economic growth, decent work, job. What have you done? What is the rate of employment in your country, Mr. President? The rate of employment in South Sudan is over 50%. 50% of the youth are not employed. Why? Because there was no clean energy for factories to come up. There is no injection of oil money on roads so that rural development can come up.
Infrastructure, yeah.
So there are no factories to come to South Sudan because of no affordable energy. All these things relate to one another.
And insecurity.
And insecurity. That will be asked later on about the peace agreement. Peace and justice and strong institutions. What have you done? How strong are your institutions? We hear that there is corruption in your country, Mr. President. Is that true? We hear that a senior member of the liberation struggle recently talked about kleptocracy. Is that a matter of indiscipline, or they ask all those questions? Then they will let us take Sustainable Development number 17, partnership for the goals. Whom are you partnering with? What is your partnership? Your partnership with China, your partnership with Russia, your partnership with the East African community, your partnership what is your role? Are you now part of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area? We hear that it started operationalizing just 2 years ago. Are you a member of that? You know, all these questions, Comrade Jonkor, will be asked because this is sustainable development goals. All the summit is about sustainable development goals.
Thank you.
You know?
Ustad Mayan, I couldn't ask anymore because you are a diplomat and you know actually how things are working. Not only diplomat, you know what it takes for a country to move from point A to point B, from B to C, and be sustainable, you know, when it comes to food and security and environmental and so forth. These are the plan that actually the government of the day or the government that actually care about the people, they tend to have this plan. But I know for sure, as my brother put it here, he will blame, you know, when he asks, he will blame everything on Riek Machar. That Riek Machar created war and he did a military coup and blah, 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 and all this. This is what he's going to do. The thing that you've said, you know, this, how the country should be run. And somebody who has, you know, projects and has a plan, you know, will be eager to answer the question right away, because he knows on the back of his mind what he wants to do for his country and what he wanted to do to his citizen, you know, to bring sustainable economy, security, and energy, and all the things that you have been talking about, because security is number one. But if the president is creating chaos in the country and communal violence and war and all these things to make people just scared of their own life, I bet when he speaks on the 21st of this month, he's going to blame everything on the war and war that he has created it, okay? And he's just going to talk about the peace agreement and how he's doing, and we wanted to do election, and my opponent is refusing, you know, so we can go for election. Election that is fake, actually. I know exactly what he's going to say, you know, without looking for his speech, because we know, you know, how the man reasoned. Salva Kiir is not a man for task. Thank God he has been given an opportunity. People of South Sudan are very, very patient, are very good people, are very, very patient. As I said, you know, maybe, you know, the cultural aspect play a huge role, you know. They always, you know, patient and they give a chance. They don't rush to conclusion. And he has been given a chance and he just, you know, he took advantage over and over and over again and using political deception, you know, to move around and do around. But I hope so. Those of Paul Kagame, those of Ruto, you know, people who actually knows what needs to be done, and Hassan Ouattara, you know, and President of Ghana, they can ask such a questions. They can ask such a question. But I bet he's gonna pretend like he's sick and he's hanging out in his hotel and he doesn't even want to meet with reporters, doesn't want to have any interviews and all this thing. The last time that President Kiir came to the United States, it was U.S.-Africa Summit in 2014 during Obama administration. That's the last time he came. He has been living in a totally isolation because he knows he has been doing wrong and everything is wrong. And that's why he has been hiding. Doesn't want to answer questions, doesn't want to be around people. He just wants to be left alone, you know, left alone. As long as you are in that government and you're stealing and you are killing and you are not talking about his seat, you are not talking about the presidency, you are not talking about what he's doing with the country, and then you are fine. Okay? So it's so sad. And that's why we are speaking to you, people of South Sudan, and people of the world, people of goodwill, the leaders, you know, of Africa, you know, to put President Kiir on the hot seat and ask this tough question. Okay? I know he wouldn't care. He would care less. He's coming here now to sell these ideas of fake election that actually we wanted to do election. My opponent doesn't want to, but this is the only way forward because he ran out of option of extension. How are you going to extend this government? There will be no way to extend it unless you have to legitimize. He has to legitimate himself by using this fake election, bad election, that he is not allowing his opponent to campaign. So we'll see what that happen. I know, Sadengit, I want to go back to you before I give my brother Solomon Dendera an opportunity, but I wanted to play the clip by the SPLM-IO because many people have asked me to do that, and then they can hear what we have been saying years and years, that actually Dr. Riek Machar is not free. He's not free to go anywhere in the country. He's not free to get out. He's not free even to go for his medical treatment. He's not free even to go for a vacation with his family. Well, he's working in the government, is the first vice president. He can have an opportunity to go for a vacation. Like Mr. President always go to Kenya for a vacation because he has a second wife there. But he has no way of going out. And we said this in numerous times. But they have been saying that, oh, these people in social media, they are rubbish. They are telling lies. But actually, we are always source of the truth. And we will remain as a source of the truth to the people of South Sudan. Makwelu, I hope he's watching today. I don't know if he came with this huge delegation. Maybe he's resting in New York in the hotel. He's the one that said last time, Riek Machar is free to go anywhere. He's not under arrest. People keep saying that. But Riek is the one that doesn't want to travel. Here you have. This is your answer, Mr. Makwelu. Let me play this. Okay. Let's play this.
Our chairman is not free to move. Our chairman is not free to move. He has never left Juba since he came in 2020. He has never left Juba. He has not visited any state. He has not even gone for treatment outside. It's not because we have not been asking for it. We have been asking for it. Only that we don't talk about it in the media. But I think today is the time to talk about it. That he is not free. He is sick in Juba. And he treats himself here inside Juba. There is no fairness. He wanted to go to WOW for a conference organized by the state. He was denied to go and participate in WOW. He wanted to go to West Africa on an invitation of one of the governments. He was denied. He was also invited to the current UN General Assembly. He was also denied. He was denied. He could not go. So this is the circumstance under which we operate. We don't talk sometimes about it, but today we are telling you that under this circumstance, and now they have even added insult to injury by saying let the president appoint 5% of the members of parliament. That means South Sudan is still a long way to see democracy. To see democracy in this country is still a long way, unless we implement the peace agreement in letter and spirit.
All right, there you have it. The deputy of the IO made it clear. Our leader is not free. He wanted to go to WOW for a conference. It was not allowed. He wanted to go to West Africa. It was not allowed. He wanted to come to New York for General Assembly because he was invited. He just didn't wake up from his sleep and say, oh, I wanted to go to New York. He was invited. But no, it was prevented by President Salva Kiir. And he's the one that say we are fair, we want to go for election. How are you going to go for election? What? And there is no political space in the country. Your own opponent, your own rival, you are not allowing him to speak. You are not allowing him to travel, to go and meet his supporters. He can go to WOW, he can go to Awil, he can go to Akobo, he can go to Malakal, he can go to whatever. They are not allowed. He is not allowed. Even his own political party, SPLM, members are banned. He made a presidential decree that actually you cannot declare your candidacy to run for the president or governor or member of the National Legislative Assembly or to be a commissioner or a mayor. You cannot. Because South Sudan is one-man show for him. He's the one decide. He's the one that robbing the future of South Sudan. Selling the oil until 2027, bring the money, oil money, and end up in J1, not to be deposited to Central Bank of South Sudan, no transformation of the economy, nothing, no plan for 5 years, for 10 years, whatever you name it. So, say something. Now we go to Solomon Dandara and we move on. Actually, today we have huge turnout. and we need this conversation to keep going. We have 200 people watching on the Facebook. Go ahead, Ustaz Dengdit, before we go. Mayandi?
Dengdit or Mayan Dengdit?
Oh, Ustaz Mayan Dengdit, I'll give you just 1 minute and I go to Dengdit and then I come to Solomon. Go ahead. Ustaz
Mayan. I think John Kor have spoken enough. I will weigh in just after Ambassador Suleiman Dandara. As an IO ambassador, I think I would want to hear from him first.
Phenomenal. Ustaz Dengdit Ayok, then please. If not, and then I will go to Ambassador Suleiman Dandara. A lot of people here on the Facebook, they wanted to hear you. We have 200 plus people are watching. Go ahead.
Let Suleiman Dandara, Ambassador Suleiman, let him speak. We shall speak after him. Thank you.
Okay, Ambassador Suleiman Dandara, go ahead.
أول حاجة خليني أشكرك جونكور. مساء الخير لك. مساء الخير لهونوربل دينغديت أيوك رئيس بتاع.
علي صوتك my brother.
كده واضح؟ كده واضح.
Yes.
Okay. أنا تاني خليني نحيي هونوربل دينغديت أيوك، نحيي الخال ميان دينغديت، نحيي الإخوة التحت كلهم، الناس المستمعين تحت. يوم الليلة أنا بالنسبة لي هو يوم هو يوم مهم جدا في حياتنا كجنوبيين. اليوم ده ما يوم بتاع أيوب بالمناسبة، اليوم ده يوم بتاع الجنوبيين كلهم، لأنه حتى الناس الطلعوا من البرلمان ده ما ناس أيوب برامي الطلعوا، ناس بتاع أيوب طلعوا والناس بتاع السوا طلعوا وفي ناس من أي جي ذاته طلعوا. معناه الجنوبيين كلهم اتفقوا على أساس إنه الحاجة اللي ماشي في بلدهم ده ما صح، ما مفروض يحصل. إذا كان الناس من الحزب الحاكم ذاته وقيادات كبيرة ولها وزن في البلد وطلعوا من البرلمان هم يعتبروا ممثلين الشعب، معناه ده البداية الحقيقية لوحدة بتاع الجنوبين في حاجة خطأ، إنه في حاجة خطأ في البلد. يا أستاذ جونكور، ربنا ما خلقنا عشان نحارب. إحنا ربنا ما خلقنا في الدنيا دي بس حياتنا يكون حرب. نحاربوا أبوهاتنا، جدودنا يحاربوا في 55، أبوهاتنا يحاربوا في عنيانيا، أنينا نجي نحاربوا في حركة شعبية، إيالنا يجي يحاربوا في دولة أنينا شلنا بس موت في موت. ما في حاجة كويس كله نعمل، ما في حاجة بيحلوا بكلام ساكت نقعد عشان نتكلم ونلقى حل. ما في ده ما فوق منطق، حاجة ما فيه منطق ولا مقبول ولا في جنوبي بغيره. أي نوع من الجنوبي بغيره، ما في زول في الدنيا ده بيحب موت شكل حرب. احنا يا جونكر احنا قاعدين في بلد بتاع خواجات. انا من جيت لي 6 سنة ما شفت قدامي كده ناس قاعدين يدقوا بنيات سيب حرب، بنيات كده قدامي ما شفت في حرب. ما انا جيت كندا 6 سنة هسه ماشي. فانا داير اوصل لكم، داير اقول شنو. الناس اللي عملوا حاجة دي بالمناسبة ده بيأكد إنه الانتخابات ده ذاته الناس الحكومة خايفين منه أكتر من أي زول، عشان كده هم ما دايرين يعملوا الحاجات بتاعهم. يعني التصرف اللي حصل الليلة ده بيأكد ناس الحكومة أكتر ناس خايفين من الانتخابات. ليه هم دايرين يطالبوا الرئيس أي الناس؟ لأنه في ناس متأكدين ما بينجحوا. مشكلة في ناس ما بيمشوا مناطقهم ذاته، يعني زي جيمانون وكمبا ده اللي هي مصرة إنه بقدر ينجح في وسط بقدر يمشي يترشح، بقدر ذاته يمشي يعمل كامبين في وسط كوتوري، ما بقدر. عندنا ناس عندنا 2 نفر الناس اللي قدموا الموشن ده، الاثنين كلهم من وسط الغزال من 2013 ما مشوا، من 2013 ما مشوا، ما بيقدروا. وده دليل الاساسي
يعني الناس اللي قدموا المشروع بتاع دين الرئيس يعين 5%. يعني those who came up with these ideas are from Western Barghazal and Western Equatoria.
الناس اللي قدموا الموشن ما طبعا هم بيتفقوا، ما هم ده كتله برلمانيه، يلا الناس بيتفقوا بيقولوا فلان وفلان تقدموا الموشن. الناس اللي شالوا الموشن قدموا للرئيس جه منون كومبو، يلا هم يعملوا فوق حوار. دي الناس من وسترن بارغزال الاثنين. we believe this. وفي ناس ما قدروا يطلعوا، مش عشان هم ما دايرين يطلعوا يا جنكو، لكن ما بيضمنوا سلامته، ما بيقدروا يعني ممكن يعارضوا الحاجه ده، معترضين على الموضوع ده، لكن ما بيقدروا يصروا الكلام ده لانه ذاته خايفين على رقبتهم. يعني بلدنا ده شيء الناس عارفين نفسهم انه ما بينجحوا ذاته، ما بينجحوا. النفرين اللي قدموا الورقه ده عشان يقدموا الرئيس نونا كومبا، اثنين كلهم من مصر برا، الاثنين من مصر.
واو.
يا ده ما حاجه، ده قصه غريبه جدا جدا، نحن قاعدين نضحك فيه، لكن اللي انا نقدر ناكد شنو؟ الحاجه ده
I was thinking maybe they are from home state of president, but interesting.
No. لا انا بس ما داير اقول الاسماء، انا بعرفهم شخصيا، انا بعرفهم معرفه شخصيه.
يا زول قولهم يا زول، ناس اللي بيعملوا فساد لبلدنا ده actually they should be you know their name should be displayed, nothing. But anyway, if you don't want to, that up to you.
الحاجه اللي انا داير اقوله لحليف الجنوبيين، زول اللي بفكر في حرب، زول اللي بفكر بيقول يمكن ناس يخشوا انتخابات بقوه وناس يحاربوا، ودار ناكد الكلام ده لاي زول. لو نحن خشينا حرب، لو الجنوب ده خش حرب، ما في زول جاي يحارب عشان دوله. الجنوب ده لما يطلع من حرب ما بطلع دوله ثانيه، بطلع حاجه برا. ما في زول ثاني داير يحارب عشان نعملوا دوله نقعدوا فوق بس نقعد نحاربوا بعضنا. ما في زول داير حاجه زي يعني. لو الحرب ده وقع معناه الجنوب ده بس يشدد، لانه ما عندنا استعداد. في ناس ما عندهم استعداد للكلام ده يا جماعه.
اوكي.
ما عندنا استعداد له، يعني ما عندنا استعداد دوله يكون ماشيه بس حق دوله حرب، دوله فساد، دوله سرقه، دوله موت، دوله ما في حاجه زي اللي انا داير اقول الجمهور. وانا مبسوط، انا زي ما قلت لك انا مبسوط الليله لانه الرؤيه وضحت. احنا كنا تايهين ذاته، قاعدين نشوف انه زي المعارضه بس هو تعبان بيعارض في الحاجه الحاصل ده وما قبل به. لكن الليله اتضح لنا الجنوبيين كلهم عن فكره تبيه. لما يطلع قيادي كبير زي نيال دينغ، ولما يطلع قيادي كبير زي تنقرن ويطلع من القاع مع الايو سوا، ويطلعوا الشباب بتسوى معاهم سبورتهم، معناه ده يمكن يتفقوا انه يا جماعه كفايه فوضى ده، كفايه المحزن ده، وده بيطمن اي زول. احنا كنا تعبانين، كل زول بيجي بيوصف ظهر ده يقول لك ده دينكا ده ما اعرف، لكن اليوم الحاجات بقت واضحه قدام الناس. اي زول اللي عنده عقل بيفكر يا هو الحاجه قدامك واضحه. يعني الدوله دي الناس الدايرين انها تمشي بالشكل ده، دي ناس محددين عندهم مصالحهم قاعدين يدافعوا عنه، ما فاضين لحاجه اسمه دوله، ما فاضين لحاجه اسمه مواطن، ما فاضين لاي زول، فاضين لرقبتهم بس. وحتى افتكر كير ذاته فكره انه 5% يدلوا ده وما بيستفيد منه حاجه اصلا، ولا انا متاكد هم ما بيكونوا فكروا. الناس الدايرين الدوله دي يمشي بالشكل ده هم اللي فكروا الحاجه الشين ده، وهم يشتغلوا فيه، وهم الملصقينه على اساس انه زي كير بس يعود داير الموضوع. ده الحاجه اللي انا داير اكد لك جنكر، وانا بشكرك انك انت فتحت الشغل للناس عشان الناس تسمع الحقائق دي. احنا كجنوبيين جا الوقت انا ما داير نغير كير، عشان حس كير ده لو يتغير في نفسه مستعدين نمشي معه قدام. احنا ما قصدنا نغير كير، احنا قاعدين قصدنا نغير الاسلوب بتاع الحكم في الدوله ده. دي يا من الاهم لنا بالكثير. لو غيرنا كير وجبنا زول اكعب من كير بيحل المشكله؟ ما بيحل المشكله. اذا احنا قاعدين نقول خلينا نغير النظام اللي قاعد يحكم، قاعدين نحكم به نفسنا. دي هو الكلام المهم. شكرا جزيلا يا جماعه.
We do. Thank you, Ambassador Selaman Dandara, for your perspective. I understand, my dear brothers. Sometimes we can allow people who speak Arabic too, because 80% of people speak Arabic in South Sudan. But actually, the reason that we conducted this episode today in English, because we want, those who are leaders to understand what we are talking about here. And you have that opportunity. And I would say, this is an opportunity for all of you to weigh in. As Salva Kiir is resting in his hotel in New York, to go and give that fake speech, I believe so, in coming days, which is 21st of this month, and talk about the fake election that actually he wanted to legitimize himself to rule South Sudan for life, and just make people of South Sudan devastated and continue the suffering for more time. So with that, Anna, I want to give you an opportunity. So if you want to weigh in, And then from there, we move, Ustad Mayan, I think Ustad Mayan, and then we move to a new guest, I believe Gernyang. And actually, I'm still asking you here on the Facebook, if you wanted to weigh in, let me know. I can post the link down here, and I'll go ahead and post the link actually down here, and then you don't have to worry about me sending you on the messenger. Yeah, go ahead, Ustad man.
I agree with Comrade Ambassador Suleiman Dandara that today marks a historic day in the National Assembly because of the walkout from the August House by many, including leaders like Nial Deng Nial and others. But I would want to about people who have presented the motion National Assembly. Because of my experience, I worked in the National Assembly for 5 years as a senior staff. I was a director of the Department of Legislation, and the legal advisor also was not around, sickly or so. So I was also acting legal advisor. So we had the Parliament has something called the Assembly Business Committee, ABC. The Assembly Business Committee is the number one standing specialized committee. It's not actually a specialized committee, but it's the number one committee because it's the only committee headed by the Speaker of the House, and the clerk to the House is the secretary, and I was the legal advisor. So then the members of the Assembly Business Committee are the chairpersons of the standing specialized committees in the Assembly. Then it is at the APC that the agenda of next year or next week or tomorrow is set. There is nothing that will come to the floor without going through the Assembly Business Committee by the APC to baptize it and approve it so that now it goes to the floor. So this motion was presented to the Speaker. Then from there at the Assembly Business Committee, all the chairpersons of the committees discussed it, and later on it was put as part of the agenda to be discussed and passed. So, and the second thing is everything that is passed by the SPLM, for example, every party, like especially the two parties, have caucuses. So it is the SPLA IG caucus that sat and directed to, this is like the Alimat, member so, you are the one who are going to put that motion to the House. So because they are members of the SPLM, they are members of the caucus, sometimes their hands are tied. So don't be so hard on your people from Western Barghazal who presented that. If you you take this process into account. The second thing is about the current affairs, elections itself. The government in Juba has been talking about elections, and whoever that does not want elections must just stay away, and if they go to the bush, nobody will follow them. First of all, if President Kiir is listening, I would want to say, President Kiir, we actually honor you. Everything that we want is for you to have an honorable exit because we honor you, we respect you. That is why we're talking about these affairs, because no South Sudanese who called you Joshua wanted you to fail. Your success would have been so great to all of us, so great to our history. But your failure has been that is why your failure has been a disappointment to all of us. But that does not take away our honoring you if you step aside and give a senior member of your party, of the SPLM, of the liberation struggle that some of us contributed to. Just take that member and let them lead, them take it over. Paul Kagame, the first 10 years of Rwanda, when they invaded Kigali, and their leader died in Uganda, then they entered. Paul Kagame was the head of the RPF. But Paul Kagame decided to be the Minister of Defense. He put somebody who is more educated, somebody who is more diplomatic, and he started just studying. It was his mission, even though he was known as the de facto president, but he was the Minister of Defense because he wanted to control the army, because he knew that it is the security sector that was important and he was the head. You know, then later on, he became the president. He did not just decide that because I'm the head of the liberation struggle, I'm going to be the president immediately. He did not do that. You know, what has gone, but there is always a chance to correct what you did wrong, Mr. President. Now about legitimacy. Elections must lead to legitimacy. And legitimacy is a function of a free and fair election. Because if the elections are not free and fair, then those who are coming...
And there is no minimum standard for that election.
Yes, there is no... They will ask you always to level the playing field. Leveling the playing field means allow every candidate who wants to stand against you to hold rallies everywhere in the country. Because this is a general election. Is that the case? That is not the case. So, Mr. President, whoever is telling you that Dr. Riek should not hold rallies, for example, in Juba or in any place, should not move around, is actually taking your elections. When you win, nobody will approve your elections in the region. The international community will just say the elections were not free and fair. That will impact your legitimacy. So you need to defeat your opponents freely and fairly. Allow them to hold rallies. The second thing is about the rejection of the 5%. The 5% was in the constitution of the so-called constitution of late John Luke. Because the party, the SPLM itself, our liberation movement itself, wanted to allow the president also to have his say in terms of a few people. 5% of 300 and something, 332. 5% is 17 people. So the president will have the right to appoint 17 members of parliament. But that goes against the function of the president. The president is an executive. He's not a legislature. He's the head of the executive. He's not the head of the legislative branch of government. So the executive branch itself, you have so many jobs there that you can fill. You have the right to appoint so many ministers. You have the right to appoint deputy ministers. You appoint undersecretaries. You appoint chairs of commissions. You appoint deputy chairs of commissions. You appoint ambassadors. And all these are executive powers. What else do you want? What other powers do you want? You run the budget. That is enough powers already. Why would anybody advise you? I'm sure it is those Honorable Jemanunu Kumba and those ones who want to endear themselves to the president, who decided that when the president is away, we are going to give him a gift of that. We want you also to have powers here at the legislative assembly. You have to have your hand, your tentacles have to reach the legislative branch of government, which is not the right way of governing a country. You need checks and balances for the sake of good governance, not for your own sake. For the sake of posterity, for the sake of good governance, you need 3 independent institutions, and this is a presidential system of government. You don't need to have the power to appoint. You can appoint the Chief Justice because so many countries appoint Chief Justices. You have here in America, the the president also nominates people to the Supreme Court, and that is okay. But all other things must be independent in the judiciary. The parliament must be purely elected, made up of elected members from constituencies so that they represent the people. But if you assign 17 people, they will represent you. They will not have a constituency to represent. So this is why a few people have moved away, have come out of the assembly. And this is a blow to the president himself. If such senior members have started rejecting powers to be given to him, I'm sure these members will be sold out by their colleagues, because this has been the case of the SPLM. Unfortunately, this has been the case of our great liberation struggle, our great revolutionary movement, that we've been selling ourselves out. We have been endearing ourselves to one man instead of to the people. So it's good that I hope the president agrees that the elections must be free and fair, allow Dr. Riek to compete freely. This is good for South Sudan. This is the only good thing that will come out of this war, because there is nothing that is good out of this war apart from having two political parties. Tomorrow you will die, Dr. Riek will die, but let us hope that these two political parties will rename themselves, because this name does not fit South Sudan. Rename themselves, but also we will have a country with two political parties, just like the United States, just like Britain, and this will come as a result of the war. So allow the Dr. Riek to compete with you freely. Let him get 40-something% of the vote. You get 50-something% of the vote, because definitely so many people in Equatorial will not vote for you. So many people in Western Barghazal will not vote for you. Greater Upper Nile, so many will not vote for you. So it will be a real contest. And this real contest is good for the people of South Sudan to be going out talking about political things. We are teaching our people. We are the first generation. Let us teach our people. This is an opportunity to teach our people about democracy. Why would you kill this opportunity now? But these are the few things that I wanted to share with you, Jonkor, and your viewers.
Thank you, Stas Mayan Dengit, for another, perspective. So phenomenal to have you on today in this very important day on this very special episode of Concerned Citizen of South Sudan, talking about this very important, that President Salva Kiir actually here in New York for General Assembly. And we asked, will he be asked actually to answer questions about human rights abuses and the bad governance and corruption and all sort of bad things that are happening in our beloved country, and the suffering that people of South Sudan have been going through, and they continue to go through. I think I don't see any more requests from here. With that, I think I want to call Ustad Dengit. I know it is night here in the United States. It's already 10:47 in New York, and it is almost 8 o'clock here in the West Coast. So, Ustad Dengit, I want to give you that opportunity if we don't have anyone, and then I will conclude after you make a final remarks here, and then we should go. Go ahead, Ustad Dengit.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Jonkor. I would like to thank and appreciate and commend Ustaz Mayan Dengit for his valuable comments and his contribution to this program and his elaborations on how the UN General Assembly meetings are conducted and the importance of the sideline meetings between the head of states and other head of states that can meet him, and the type of concerns. He actually elaborated very well, and everything was good. We also appreciate Ambassador Suleiman Dandara for his additional comments to the discussions. What I want to add is that the United States of America is a country that would like to see free, fair, transparent, and credible elections in South Sudan. And this one is very clear in a letter written on the 14th of this month by the Department of State to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The letter is addressed directly to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I think I would read some parts of it because it highlights most of the issues that we have discussed here, and they are actually focal concerns of the United States of America in its diplomatic relations with the Republic of South Sudan. The letter is here. It says, United States Department of State, it is the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Washington, D.C. September 14, 2023, His Excellency James Morgan Fettia, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the Republic of South Sudan, Juba. Dear Mr. Minister, I offer my congratulations on your recent appointment as Foreign Minister of the revitalized Transitional Government of National Unity. It is my honor to respond to April 24th and July 25th letters of former Acting Foreign Minister Deng Dao Deng. Now, listen to what the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs said about elections. This is the part I'm going to read now. It says, Foreign Minister Deng correctly described the esteemed support of the government and people of the United States for South Sudan's declarations of independence and for the people of South Sudan. We echo the people of South Sudan's desire for peace. So the United States is clearly telling us that they echo the peoples of South Sudan desire for peace. Not only that, free and fair elections. So the United States is supporting free and fair elections in the country, appropriate use of the nation's resources and prosperity. We have never retreated from the people of South Sudan and continue to support their achieving these goals. Moreover, while the transitional government has failed to address the most basic needs of its citizens, the international community, with the United States in the lead, has provided humanitarian and life-saving assistance. It is very clear that the U.S. government is aware of the situations in the country, and this letter pointed out very clearly that the government has failed to address the most basic needs of the citizens. And Brother John Core and other colleagues in the opposition, this is what we always say.
Yes.
That the government has failed to meet the basic needs of our citizens. The international community, with the United States in the lead, has provided humanitarian and life-saving assistance. This is the role played by the United States in our country. U.S. support for South Sudan predates your country's independence by decades and is based on foundational values including human rights, the accountability of a government to its people, and the obligations of a nation's leaders to use public revenue transparently to meet the public needs. Now, in this episode, you talk about human rights violation, Brother Jonkor.
Yes.
It is not mentioned in this letter. And the U.S. is telling us clearly that the relations between U.S. and South Sudan is based on foundational values, including human rights and accountability of a government to its people, and also obligations of nation leaders to use the resources of the country transparently. Earlier, Brother Mayendengit was talking about Mr. President being asked at the UN General Assembly about the oil money and how that money has been used since 2005 until now, and what has been achieved in terms of the school built in the country, the hospital bills, and who are your economic partners, and all those things. It is here in this letter. So you see, this letter details everything of the U.S. foreign policy towards South Sudan. So it's very clear. Now, the U.S. administration went on to say this: the transitional government must also act with urgency to take steps necessary to hold free, fair, peaceful, and credible elections. Now years overdue. So the U.S. is urging the government of the Republic of South Sudan, the revitalized transitional government of national unity, to take steps necessary to hold free, fair, and peaceful, credible elections in the country. And this election is described in the letter to be years overdue, which means it has taken long for the country to hold or conduct these elections. However, the question is, will this election be free, fair, peaceful, and credible in the light of what we have seen last week when Mr. President was saying that there is no way for extension of the government, and if you are defeated, you will have to go to the bush and nobody will follow you. And then war songs were sang in that meeting. That is the question which will be answered as time goes by and as the transitional period comes to an end by the end of next year. So the U.S. administration is asking the government to hold free and fair election and meet the desires of the people of South Sudan. Now on sanctions, the U.S. said this: sanctions, restrictions on foreign assistance, and the arms embargo are responses to long-standing challenges facing the South Sudanese people. Progress toward addressing these challenges and establishing good governance will enhance South Sudan's international reputations, elevate the need and misery of many people struggling in the country, help cultivate peace, and create an environment and conducive to safe investment in business and development in South Sudan's future. So the U.S. is talking about the sanctions, that the sanctions, especially the arms embargo, are responses to what the U.S. in this letter called long-standing challenges that are facing South Sudan. So the U.S. would like to see that there is progress in South Sudan, there is stability, no more war and bloodshed in South Sudan, and that governance is improved in South Sudan, and that South Sudan has reputations, and that the needs and the misery of the people is elevated in the country. Now, regarding whether the president would meet with top officials in the U.S. administration, especially President Biden, the letter says the following: regarding former Foreign Minister Deng's request for a high-level meeting during President Kiir's Mayadi's visit to Washington, I regret to inform you that President Biden will be unavailable.
Yep.
Assistant Secretary of State. Yeah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I regret to inform you that President Biden will be unavailable. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Molly P., will be available to receive President Kiir and engage in the frank, candid discussions of all issues of mutual interest and concern that you described. U.S. Ambassador to South Sudan, Michael Edler, remains available to speak with President Kiir and other senior officials further on the issues I have raised in this letter. Sincerely, Jonathan Freight, acting. So this is the letter which was sent on the 14th of this month to the president. Now our president is in the U.S. He's not going to meet any top officials in the U.S. administration. President Biden would not be available at the UN General Assembly, as well as other prominent leaders, especially the 5 permanent members in the UN Security Council. Some of them will not be available, and this one is in the news. Those of you who have followed the news, it is very clear. So President Kiir is not going to meet any top official in the U.S. administration. He will only meet with the junior officials, and they will discuss issues of mutual interest in South Sudan. And so I agree with Mayan Dendit that our president is going to be asked a lot of questions, and he would not be able to answer any of those questions, especially the question about the money, the oil money, what has it been used for, and what are the developmental projects that have been achieved in the country. He would not be able to answer that. If he is asked about roads, network all over South Sudan, he would not be able to offer any answers. If he is asked about the schools, if he is asked about security, he would not be able to answer. And that one is an indication that he has failed. So this is what I would like to add, Brother Jonkor, and I thank you once more time for the chance, and I appreciate all those who have come up here to also add their perspective. So in conclusion, the visit of our president to the United States is going to be a diplomatic and political embarrassment, because he would not have any vision to articulate in front of the world leaders. And this shows that President Kiir is a failed leader and must leave power immediately. And the people of South Sudan should not even vote for him in the upcoming elections, because he has failed us in the last the last 18 years since we were a region within the Sudan, and during the 12 years of our independence as an independent nation. Thank you.
Ustaz Dengdi Ayok, thank you so much, for elaborating. Thank you for great perspective. And at the end, I want to thank also Ustaz Mayan Dengdi for great, contribution. Ambassador Selaman Dandra, and all the viewers and on the Facebook here today. We have a huge turnout giving the importance of this topic, and also our viewers, people who tune in from Clubhouse. I really appreciate your contribution. As I said, this episode is to remind people of South Sudan, and also to remind the leaders of the world who are gathered at the UN headquarters in New York to attend the General U.S. Assembly Session 78. That's where President Kiir is coming to attend that as well, to remind President Kiir about the liberation struggle, the cost of the fight, what he has been fighting for 38 years, the war of Anyanya 1 and liberation struggle in 1983. That actually people of South Sudan have suffered enough, and they need a break, and they need a chance to live with decency, and they need to look on the eyes of President Salva Kiir and ask, a leader is a servant. A leader is somebody who is devoted to his people. A leader who is someone who can have a plan for the people that he is leading. That's what leader mean. A leader is not somebody who will take from the people. It's someone actually who will provide and help, to make that country live in peace and harmony. We want them to us and give a good example of their countries, how they have been leading their people and moving their country to the safer path and a right way. So also to remind people of South Sudan that actually this is your opportunity. You have been patient enough, and enough is enough. And if you are not acting for all these years, it is a time for you to act as well, because you have been in a slow, emotion death, what I would call it, because that's what it is. We were dreaming a South Sudan that we can be just to all of us, a South Sudan that we can be free, a South Sudan that we can live in peace and harmony, a South Sudan that we can speak and express, our views and our opinion, a South Sudan that we can think, we can dream, and we can invent things. But when there is no conducive environment, and when you are not allowed to express, and then the dream and aspiration of people of South Sudan will not be realized. And that's why we are conducting this today, this episode, to remind you and remind the bigger brother, the United States of America, who stood with the people of South Sudan, who paid ultimate prices $12 billion to support the people of South Sudan. And they continue to support people of South Sudan through the humanitarian assistance. That actually, when that meeting comes to 3 days or 4 days from now, I know President Kiir will leave on Friday, going back to South Sudan. When that meeting comes with the former ambassador to South Sudan, Molly Fee, she needs to ask a critical question. That, Mr. President, the time has been ticking and nothing has changed. And you have not implemented peace agreement. And you have called for election for just legitimacy. But there is a need for you to allow people of South Sudan to exercise their freedom, to exercise like what we have exercised when we had a referendum. So this is a call for all of you. This is a call for all people of South Sudan, that actually in this time, in this era, if President Kiir is not acting, and then it is upon us, people of South Sudan, to determine our destiny. I really wanted to thank the member of National Legislative Assembly who actually rejected the ridiculous ideas that President Kiir should be giving 5% to appoint member of National Legislative Assembly. Like I said from the beginning, that is an insult for democracy, and that is an insult to the people of South Sudan who pay an ultimate prices for liberation struggle. With that, I hope this episode will get its way to your heart. People who are concerned, people who are concerning more about the issue of our country. With that, I will really thank you so much for tuning in huge number and for watching this. And please continue to go ahead and share it. We were live on Facebook, on Clubhouse, on YouTube as well. Go ahead and share it to those who were not able to attend so they can get a glimpse of what we have talked about today. Thank you so much and have a good night. Next week, inshallah.
Slavery, be free from slavery. Yeah.
We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war. We're here to speak the word.